11 years ago, Dieter Plager died in Sumatra in an accident in a project where I was working with him. We were using a one-man airship, a small airship, to film the forest canopy. I flew the airship first a few times, and then he flew it, and it was going very well, the project. On the day of his accident, we woke up and the atmosphere was very sombre. I think it's possible that his wife and him had a very big argument at night, and there was a tension. Maybe she had a premonition about what was going to happen. He took off in the morning, a little bit late, there were lots of delays. He decided to mount the camera on the front of the airship looking back at him. Took off a little bit late and there was a slight wind, not much, it was very calm. The airship flew up a river just like this, calmly disappeared over the canopy. It circled, we could see it in the distance going across the canopy while he was filming, but it started getting a little bit higher than I expected, and there seemed to be a problem. Then we radioed him, and the first problem we had was that the radios didn't work. They hadn't been charged properly. The airship descended some way away over the canopy, and one member of the team took bearings to see where it would come down. He stood on a big cliff ledge and watched where it came down. And then very calmly, very professionally, we arranged a team to go out and meet the airship. But I could see the airship up on a tree, perched on a tree, with Dieter was up there sitting in the seat, quite calmly. In fact, I watched him sitting there as some birds passed above. And he managed to lift the nose, but the camera that he'd put at the start was caught on a branch, and it wouldn't loosen, and he couldn't reach it. I saw him unbuckle his seat, but he wasn't wearing a harness, and he tried to reach out to the camera. We waited again, and I saw this big bank of clouds getting closer and closer. It was a light blue sky like we have now, but this cloud was a big grey blank coming in. And I could see the rustling of the treetops, and then it just moved in very rapidly. And I could see the frame of the airship on the tree rocking like a bronco. And I could see Dieter holding on. And then something I didn't quite believe, I saw it rock really hard and it broke the frame of the airship. And I saw him lurch forwards and fall out. The tree was maybe 50 or 70 meters high, and I knew that if somebody fell from that, they would be killed. Well, that's what I realized, but I just didn't believe it. And so I ran back into the forest. It was very dark in there. When you looked up, it was pitch black. Just little vague lights from the light coming through. But he hadn't fallen, and I thought, well, I must have been mistaken. I must have dreamt it. I waited a period of about 5 minutes, and the others waited, and Freedom was with me, just told me to shh, be quiet. We heard some cracking of branches. And what had happened, another member of the team, Marcus, had climbed very cleverly up another tree. The tree he was on was dead and breaking anyway, but Marcus had climbed another tree and got within 2 meters, I found out later, of Dieter. And the airship was lodged with Dieter holding on to the part of the airship or part of a branch. And he very calmly said to Marcus, "Pull me over." And Marcus pulled the rope towards him. And this must have dislodged the airship from where it was. And then Dieter did fall. I was standing at the base of the canopy, and then I saw something that I'll never forget. I saw this man coming down, holding his head, lying on his side, falling through the air past me. It was like in slow motion. I can still see that. Even though it happened very rapidly, I could still see it falling. And then I heard him hit the ground with a thud. The terrible thing is, it was like meat in a butcher's shop, slamming down on the ground. The ground was soft and peaty, and we thought he was dead at first. He was half buried in this peat. He'd lost an eye, and so he looked a bit of a mess. And one of the guys, Rob, was really fantastic. People come into their own in those situations, and I was just lost. The first thing I said was just Jesus Christ, and I was just lost. because I didn't believe what had happened. But Rob, he was like a brilliant nurse, and he went over to this guy, and we assumed he was dead. But as I looked down at the detail, I realised he was alive because his other eye opened. And then Freedom was brilliant because we just, in lightning speed, put together a stretcher. We took off our shirts, tied the stretcher, and very carefully lifted him onto the stretcher. We got him across the river with two Indonesian porters. And there was a mud track on the far side of the bank. We got him there. But when I got him to the far side, it was clear his breathing was getting worse. He had this sort of moaning sound, but then he started sounding calmer. And I said to him, the last thing I said to him was that something's very, I don't know, I just said, "You're looking better, Dieter," which of course he wasn't. And we lifted him up on this mud path. It's a very narrow ledge, and there was a terrible moment at that point where we actually felt we were going to slip down the bank and his body would fall into the river, and four of us were concentrating hard on doing this. And just as we reached the canopy height, we heard him stop breathing. I couldn't look back because I was at the front. We got to the top of the road, and I looked at him, and I've never seen a dead body before in my life. And I looked at his body and I realised he was dead. I washed his blood in the river from the cloth of my shirt, and I watched the blood go down in the river. It was the last I really saw him.